So speaking of alternatives to synthetic fibers and fabrics, do you have any natural alternatives here?
Yeah, there are starting to be a lot more natural alternatives to synthetics on the market, which is great. We're starting to see fabric mills develop more and more. One of my favorite new ones is from a company based here in Chicago, Illinois, and they are doing a plant-based leather alternative. So they're using vegetable oils and hemp and other plant-based materials and dyes to make an alternative to PU and PVC, which is being produced at a higher rate than leather these days. So we're actually using more fake leather than we are real leather, and that fake leather is all made from plastics. So they're proposing a really great alternative that's high quality and completely biodegradable, which is very exciting. And that we have that in the library, that's a new acquisition. We're also seeing a lot more technical fibers because one of the biggest industries for plastic-based materials is activewear. And a lot of that is either polyester, nylon, basically all the synthetics. So we're starting to see high-performance wool, for example, become an alternative. So it's great for a lot of maybe non-vegans because that wouldn't be accessible to that community of buyers, but people who don't want to wear synthetics but do want performance quality in their materials. And wool and silk actually offer a lot of great alternatives.
Interesting. So how do you view the role of synthetic fibers in fashion sustainability as a whole?
That's a tricky question. So at present, synthetic fibers make up for about 60% of what we produce every year, which is huge. It's more than all of the naturals combined. And I would love to see a steep decline in that. I'd love to see natural fibers and a variety of them start to take over. Hemp, for example, is a great one. We have a new company based in Philadelphia who's doing research on hemp coming to present later this week. And I'm hoping that hemp will be able to take over some of the performance qualities of synthetics. At the moment, there's just so much synthetic that's being used and then disposed of, and because it doesn't have biodegradable properties and isn't being reclaimed for recycling, it's just going straight to landfill, which is a tragedy of the system. So I see the future as a decline in our dependence on synthetics and reuse of synthetics themselves, the ones that already exist. So recycling plastic bottles, recycling our polyester apparel, all of that will be potentially the best use for the synthetics that we already have on the market.
Thank you. Could you imagine a world without petroleum-based fabrics? And how do you think this would affect the roles of fashion designers and fashion consumers?
I have trouble imagining a world entirely without the synthetics because we have so many on the market right now. So I do see an increase in recycled synthetics. And until we have none left, which I don't see happening anytime soon, I do see as a world without the use of virgin synthetics. So I would love to see a decline there, maybe not to 0%, but at least close to it, and an increase in the recycled properties. There are problems, of course, with that solution as well, but at the moment we have so much synthetic plastic and materials on the market that we need to be able to recycle them somehow.
Do you think that there could be what would push consumers to maybe opt for more recycled synthetic fibers and go out and buy like brand new virgin polyester garments?
I think it's really the responsibility of the brands to start sourcing more recycled, demanding it from their suppliers, making requests from the fabric mills and the fiber mills to be using recycled versus virgin. I don't think that consumers are responsible for this until they have a better education and have better access to these materials, because even though they may want it, it's hard to find it until the brands start adopting recycled or alternatives. So natural alternatives would be great if we could find them. But I think as far as consumers are concerned, the only thing they could do right now is start asking for it from the brands that they support. And actually Fashion Revolution Day is coming up. I think that's a great time to start making demands on brands. That's April 24th. And so if consumers start to ask from their brands that they want better alternatives to what they're currently producing, then hopefully we'll start to see a shift. But I think the responsibility is really on the brands themselves.
Do you think the pressure from social media, from consumers to brands would help them push, would push them in a direction to want to seek out recycled?
Absolutely, I think that's actually the best way. Is social media pressure from individuals, whether it's through phone calls, emails, social media, always works because brands start to see that they will lose customers if they don't start making changes in their supply chain.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome so much.